So, when we have students do reading comprehension tests on previous exams, which are a great source because they are created by the province, and so we know that they're at a level that is deemed appropriate for a certain grade and or a certain group of students. One of the things that's important when we have students go back and look at those tests, or we want to look at them as a class, is um, something for the kids to look at and compare, and that can really affect engagement in that process, which is otherwise not super exciting for them. So, one way to do that is to create a Google form. And so I just have reading comprehension test here. And then what we would do is we would come down. I've got question one, and a form doesn't automatically give the question numbers. So you would just want to put the question number. No need in this case to write out the question to have any information. We're just going to have a really generic form that we're going to use over and over. So one, and then A, B, C, D are your responses. And then at the bottom, if you just click duplicate, we'll have another one. So I'll just change this to 2. And then I would duplicate that as many times as I needed it. Now, when I would use a former PAT or a former diploma exam, I just use the numbering often that was there. And so rarely would I actually have number 1 from an exam. So this question might start on 12, and then this might go to 13. So the only thing I would have to do every new time I gave the students a test is come in and spend 37 seconds renumbering. And then you can use that item or that form over and over again. The instructions can stay the same, everything can stay the same, but the important thing that it does is, we don't want to make a new one, we want to duplicate. The important thing that it does is it gives the students a place afterwards to collect the data. Because what's going to happen is once they do the test, you're going to have all of their responses show up. And so when you review the test, or more importantly, you review questions that they did poorly on the test, this will help do a couple things really easy for you. So then the real power is when we look at the responses. So now we can see, this is what we would want to show the students. There's no names attached or anything, but we can see here how the students' responses spread out. And more importantly, we can see perhaps what that second best distractor is, and then talk about those 2 questions in particular. And if the students actually, sometimes it happens that they pick the second best distractor most, we can really talk about that. So what this does is it focuses the students on an answer, and we don't have a, I don't know, or I didn't submit that question. It forces the students to stick to an answer, but then also you get that visual, and it really guides the discussion and helps out in that vein. And so one of the things that we didn't do here is actually add the correct response. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that as well. Sometimes I choose not to do that, because if I'm rolling this form over and over, then it's one more thing that I have to check and change if I use this a lot, but we'll take a look at what that looks like. So to identify correct answers, what you do is you come over to settings. I'm sure you've done this before. You'll click on make this a quiz, and depends on what you want to do here. You could, no, the kids are already doing it on paper, so you probably don't need locked mode and all those things. You could decide here, and depending on how you're going over this, the kids are going to know their answers eventually anyways. You can decide how to do some of these other ones at the bottom. In your case, because you're giving kids a chance to redo it, you are going to want to make sure that you give them an opportunity down here to limit. You're going to want to turn off, or make sure limit to 1 response is turned off, because you're going to want to use that form over and over. And you probably are going to want to collect email addresses just so that at the end you can keep track of how a student does. It won't be a perfect tracker if you're changing the question numbers, but it would still be interesting. You should be able to still get some data. So what we're going to do now is I have turned on the quiz, and so you'll see that it goes from a circle graph to a bar graph for these questions. Now what I'm going to do is come to the questions, and I'm going to identify, click on answer key, oops, and click the correct answer for each of these. Okay. So if you do use the scoring, you'll get this nice insights pane here, and mine isn't going to kick in because I set the answers to be certain answers or to a quiz after I had already submitted them. So you have to do that before. So you'll get some good data here that you can show the kids. Also nice to keep track of. And then again, this is even more powerful, I think, than the bar graph or than the circle graph. Again, the correct response will show up in green and the others will show up as not green. So this gives a really good visual, and you can look at the questions that you most need to. If 19 out of 20 kids in the class got that wrong, you maybe don't spend time on it. But if it's a bunch of questions that are really close, that might be where you focus and then really dig into why we would pick one over the other. And the last thing I would recommend doing, again, I'm assuming you're going to want to use this same form, flip it over again and again and again, which is why you might not put the correct answers in pre-programmed. And that could depend how you're going to use it and release it to students as well. There might be some real good use cases for that. But I would also recommend coming to the create spreadsheet and then create a spreadsheet so that the answers go into there. And then at the end, you can sort by students and do some filtering and start to get a little bit of data that compiles over time as well. And even just from question to question, it's another place there. So you just hit create and it'll create a new spreadsheet that's connected to the form. So this is one way of giving kids a visual when you're going over those questions. First of all, it makes them commit to an answer. It's not the I didn't know or I didn't answer. Like that doesn't help anybody in your class. This can be done literally. They can enter these marks in less than a minute. I would put the link either in their Google Classroom or I'd even have it on a QR code that they could scan and just do on their phone really quickly. If you need help making a QR code, I can do that for you. And then again, you just keep rolling this quiz, the same one. You don't need a new QR code. But then you have this visual to guide your discussion afterwards. And I think that would really help in that after or that discussion phase, give it some direction and focus, and then you know where you really need to focus. And I think it's helpful for kids to see this instead of let's look at question 17 and they're all over the map, and this way they can see, oh, I was the only one that got that wrong, or oh, we were split so it was hard. If they're always the only one that got the question wrong and they can see that on the screen, that might be helpful just for their own metacognition about, hey, something's going on here. I've really need to take this more seriously. So if you need any clarification or have some other ideas or questions around that, or want me to help you get that set up, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to just zip through that. Let me know. That is one idea. I wanted to get something off to you quickly because it's been a while since I had intended to do this for you. So I've got some more ideas that I'll send, but this is a good first one.